Hello and welcome back to Weeknight Hero. As always, I'm your GM Evan. With how well the Vision and Scarlet Witch video did last week, I thought we'd keep it going with another showcase showing off another Marvel property. That is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or Captain America and the Winter Soldier by the end of it. Sorry for the spoiler. So the show, while it did have some issues with villains and plotting just a little bit, I think it demonstrated a wonderful aspect to the MCU that I think more people could add to their campaigns and settings, and that is having the actual setting and the time and place and location, politics, all of that kind of informs the story in ways that people don't often think about. Something I like to do a lot in my campaigns is create a background world that all things that the characters do kind of bounce off of, and sort of have the opinions and mindset of the players infect the story more with just a vibrant energy. So let's get into the characters. Now, this version of Sam Wilson, the Falcon / Captain America, does from that Captain American series where Falcon takes on the role of Captain America. That is also where the Winter Soldier is coming from in terms of a power level perspective for these characters, and with the level of threats that they're dealing with, I would place it firmly in a power level 10 kind of a setting. So one thing you'll note as we get into the Falcon's character is that there's kind of a delineation, there's a separation between where he starts off as the Falcon, and then you can also choose to add on the optional powers of him having Captain America's shield, only about the difference of one power, so it doesn't make a huge change. But depending on how you wanted to play the character, you could go either way with this character sheet. So taking a look at his abilities and saves and skills first, you'll notice that the Falcon has completely normal human trained levels in pretty much every field. This is, of course, intentional. There are plenty of superheroes in these games that aren't super strong. Even as they go higher and higher in power levels, they mostly will just gather more advantages and more skills. So how do these characters set themselves apart? Well, I'll get into that a little more in the advantages section, but what you're going to notice here is with their powers kind of being capped by their body's biological shortcomings, they have to make up for it in different ways. But the large standouts with his abilities are his agility and his fighting. So these things lend him to many different fighting styles, many different ways that he can handle attacks. His defenses, on the other hand, are very trained human. Now, thankfully, this is mitigated with his incredibly good skills area. Acrobatics is the most fundamental skill with Sam. He's in the air. How often does he need to be sort of agile and do extra flips and tricks? Almost constantly. This is further backed up with highly accurate close combat and ranged combat skills in his guns, pistols area, and also with his unarmed fighting kind of a thing, which all goes to show very talented martial artist. Last thing I'd like to note is his very high persuasion skill. I feel like that's one of those kind of skills that does him very well, both as Captain America and does him very well as Falcon, because of that comprehend birds power that allows him to make interaction checks with other birds and animals. So it really facilitates his partnership with Redwing, and that's another big thing we're going to notice as we go into advantages. So as is common with all of our martial artist characters, Sam will have a slew of advantages. Now remember, advantages are what trained ordinary humans can use in order to keep pace with superpowered characters. And this is one of those big things when I had asked the question a few minutes ago, what sets Sam apart? The advantages do. Because this man is incredibly skilled at aerial combat. Not only does he have the favored environment air and agile feint talents, what allows these types of characters to stand toe-to-toe with superpowered characters is power attack. See, what these characters lack in direct physical power, they make up for with improvisation and ingenuity. Exactly how their attacks become more powerful is entirely up to the player and the GM, but when you include that power attack in there, it allows Sam, through presumably building momentum, flips, tricks, things like that, to deal far more damage with his ordinary attacks than the average trained person would be. This is also bolstered by his power set, because not only does he have favored environment, he has enhanced favored environment, which provides a direct +5 to his attack bonus or his active defenses. It's chosen by the player when they use it. And those things provide a numerical bonus to his skills. So now you're taking a character who would otherwise be a very well-trained martial artist, and by putting them in their natural element, becomes just as good as a superpowered character or a highly durable character. This is further bolstered by the other slew of advantages. As a martial artist, he has the ability to, take down, knock around, mess around with other characters through those trips, those grabs, those hold advantages. But the final step that really puts Falcon as a very interesting character are the team advantages that he has with his sidekick Redwing. With the combination of their teamwork, they could deal more damage to an otherwise very durable opponent. Now, finally, we'll get into his powers. So, as we had mentioned, a lot of these powers are sort of very low level, very general. There's the very often not talked about bird telepathy power that Falcon has. It's not seen in the MCU in any sort of way, but he has the ability to communicate with birds, which opens up another slew of possibilities, especially with those teamwork talents. You could reasonably be set up by a flock of seagulls to do a team attack with your power attack and knock out somebody otherwise incapable of being knocked out by the Falcon. Finally, in his list of equipment, I'll include Captain America's shield. If you wanted to take him the Captain America route, it's included in there. The key things with Captain America's shield is with that deflect bonus, he's able to aid adjacent allies and give him the same bonus to their active defenses to avoid attacks. And also it can be thrown and ricocheted about to harm opponents at a long range, because Falcon lacks in the long range. Traditionally, his strategy is, if he's not using pistols, he's going to be using that Talon or the martial arts to do damage at a distance. And that needs to be bolstered at this kind of high level with power attack almost always. So what you're looking for with him is you're going to keep the distance for the most part. With that flight power, you have the ability to dart in and out of combat. So you should be unable to be hit as often as possible. Especially with that move by action power, you can split up your move actions and really make use of the distance that he can claim by zooming in real quick, hitting them with a power attack or a team attack, and zooming right out. This is also helped by Redwing. Now, Redwing is much weaker. It's literally just a bird. However, it is entirely set up with a lot of Sam's movesets and a lot of Sam's advantages that allow him to do the same thing on a much smaller scale. So, with two characters that have total synergy with each other, Falcon's a rather interesting character, and he's kind of a version of a speedster that can completely complement each other and do far more than one character would by themselves. All right, so with that in-depth talk, a lot of what I had said for this Falcon goes for the Winter Soldier as well. So you'll notice very similarly, he has mostly trained levels of abilities. Other than that fighting score. Now recall, if you're going to have a high fighting score, you're making a character that can use any weapon with deadly effectiveness. If they're only good with one weapon, stick with just a close combat skill. But with that fighting 8, he can essentially pick up a weapon, any kind of weapon, and use it with a near masterful accuracy. That is also reflected in his defenses and his saves, where he's able to handle and be a little more durable than Sam can be in a lot of situations, because his character is slightly above a trained human's level. This is also reflected in those skills. Now, he has a wider range of skills than Falcon does. This is made up for the fact that he has far fewer powers. He has to rely solely on martial arts in order to get ahead. So he needs those high close combat, ranged combat, acrobatics, stealth skills in order to do essentially the same thing that Falcon does. But he does it with immense efficiency. Now, when it comes into advantages, we're doing the same thing that Falcon does. You're looking to maximize his power with that power attack. The idea being that once you get into close combat with the guy, he has numerous holds and flips and tricks that he can use to ruin your day. One big thing I note is while the Falcon has that agile feint advantage that allows him to do tricks based off of acrobatics, Winter Soldier has the same thing with his tactical training advantage, which goes off of his expertise tactics. So he's using military tactics to trick and feint people rather than aerial. But you'll notice that he's significantly weaker in it than Falcon is, because not much of a team-up guy. Finally, like Falcon, Winter Soldier's rather low damage output is supplemented with weapons. His powers are mostly very general and mostly very background. They're just there to accompany him in his close combat fighting, especially with that healing factor and that movement. And also his robotic arm just adds a little bit of extra damage. But we're looking at his equipment here, because that's the thing that allows him to bridge the gap between a superpowered individual and a trained martial artist type of character. You're really going to see that equipment do a lot of the work here, especially with the modifications that he's put on it. The final thing that allows him to hit heavy is that assault weapons rapid fire mode with that multi-attack, because he can attack a slew of characters all at once, or he can sort of chain shots together with pinpoint precision to do more damage than a normal character would. So much like Sam with this kind of a guy, he's a beast at ranged combat or at close combat. But once the superpowered gloves start coming off, you're going to start seeing him making use of that equipment and that power attack to really lay on the damage. But that about wraps it up with both characters. I know a lot of people are very interested in playing these types of, martial artist plus guns, highly trained human weapon types, and I feel like this really allows people to understand how those characters function and the necessary skills they're going to need in order to be effective. When you can't mentally compel people and you can't shoot lightning from your eyes, it becomes a little difficult to set yourself apart. But I think these kinds of things really allow a character who would otherwise just punch or punch harder to do really interesting things. So that wraps it up for the video. As always, if you liked it, please comment, like, subscribe, do all of that. Check out any of the other background material if you haven't already. And we'll see you guys next week for Loki.